Hello and welcome to Faithfully Stampin' with Jennifer Helm. I am Jennifer Helm, the Faithful Stamper and independent demonstrator with Stampin' Up! Today I have for you a quick and simple card technique. I was looking for something easy and something that helped me use up scraps of designer series paper that I have laying around because I am a paper hoarder and I don't like to get rid of anything that I might be able to use later. So this is the perfect card to do that with. So let me show you how it's done. To start, you will need a card base. I am using a piece of Cajun Craze cardstock. This is 5.5 by 8.5, and I have it scored down the middle on the long side at 4 1/4 to create my card base. You can use either style of card base. If you prefer the 4 1/4 by 11, you are more than welcome to use that. It doesn't really matter for this particular card. Either one is fine. Next, we are going to need 2 pieces of designer series paper. These are 1 inch tall by 4 1/8 inch wide. Make sure your direction is running in the proper direction before you cut your paper. Just keep that in mind. And then in addition to these 2 pieces, we will also need 2 pieces of either designer series paper or embossed cardstock. You could even use plain cardstock if you like. I used these 2 pieces of designer series paper from the Rings of Love paper pack that we have currently, and there wasn't anything else really masculine to go with it. So to pair with that, I used embossed cardstock. This is soft suede, and I embossed it with the Timber 3D embossing folder, and these are both 1 inch wide by 3 inches tall. And what we're going to do is put these together sort of like a puzzle on the front of my card, and then we're going to make a frame on the outside and leave a rectangle area in the middle that we'll fill in later. So what I like to do is take my pieces and lay them on my card just to get a good visual of where I would like them to be. So you're going to put 1 strip of designer series paper at the top left with a very narrow border around the edge. And then your 1 by 3 you're going to slip down the side. The other 1 by 3 inch panel is going to go at the bottom left, and then your final piece of designer series paper is going to go here at the bottom right. And I just like to lay them out before I start gluing so I have everything laid out. You can adjust them a little bit if you don't like as much space here. Just scoot them a little closer together before you get started. But remember, you will be filling in this space here in the middle, and it is a tight fit. So you don't want to go too close to the inside. You do want to keep towards the outside. And then just grab your favorite adhesive and position these in place on the card. You can use liquid glue, you can use your favorite tape runner, whatever you like. And I usually start with 1 piece of designer series paper and then glue my corresponding strip on the other corner, and that way I have a visual to line up with for the other 2 pieces. Because I'll take the second thinner strip here and I will match it to the side as far as distance away from the edge of the card. And now this is the trickiest piece to position, and even then it's not really tricky. You just have to line it up with the bottom and the side here, and that way you will have a nice visual look, and things won't be crooked, they'll be lined up nicely. So just air gently and press them down once you're sure you have everything positioned and ready to go. Now for the middle, what we're going to do is layer 2 rectangles together. The first one is a cardstock rectangle that is 3 1/8 inch by 2 inches. Now if you want, you can make this a bottom layer like I am here, or if you don't want to add an extra layer, you can use this to do your stamping or put your image on, whatever you like. I have decided to add an extra layer, so I'm using this more as a frame, and I'm taking a panel of basic white that is 3 by 1 7/8 inch. So it's got a very narrow border around it, but this is the perfect size to fit on the middle of this card, but I'm going to stamp on here before I get going. So what I'm going to do is I have these Stylish Sketches stamp set. If you're watching in August of 2022, Stampin' Up! Is currently running their celebration promotion. If you're not sure what that is, be sure to check out my website. And if you would prefer to see a paper catalog and you don't have a demonstrator you're currently working with, please feel free to get in touch with me and I'd be more than happy to send you one. But during the months of July and August, we have a promotion where for every $50 or $100 you spend, you get to pick a freebie from a special celebration catalog. This is one of the stamp sets that's available with a $50 purchase, and I'm using the Fox from the stamp set tonight. And I decided I wanted to watercolor my stamp. So I'm going to put this on my silicone craft mat. This is great for protecting my surface, just because this fox is really just the right size to fit on my paper, and in case I run off the edge, I want to protect my work surface. So I'm going to take my stamp. This is red rubber cling, so I don't need a cushion underneath, and I'm using Stays-On ink. Stays-On ink is the ink you want to use for watercoloring. If you were coloring, say, with Stampin' Blends, you would want to use Memento ink instead. But this is our jet black Stays-On ink. And as I said, my little guy fits right there on the stamp set. I'm going to let that dry for just a minute. And while I do that, I'm going to bring over my watercolor pencils. We have two sets of watercolor pencils. And July happened to be watercoloring month, and so I decided to break them out. I haven't used them in a while. The Old Olive I'm going to use is from the first set, and then the Cajun Craze is from the second set. I wish we had more colors, honestly, because I'm a big fan of the watercolor pencils, but we do have a nice variety of colors. And then I also have a blender pen, which I'm going to use to soften the look of the watercolor pencils. I opted for Cajun Craze instead of Pumpkin Pie. It's just a little bit deeper of a color, and I thought it suited better and coordinated with the Cajun Craze on the card as well. So what I'm going to do is just very gently and quickly, because I know you don't want to spend all night watching me color, add some color to my fox. I'm going to leave a little bit of white on his face and his chest area, since foxes are known to have that white on their chest. And I'm not going to color every single bit of this because the blender pen is going to help me smooth my look out. So I'm just going to quickly hit with all the areas that I want with the colored pencil. And I think that's good there. And then I'm going to switch to that Old Olive and just run it quickly over the bottom here so it doesn't look like he's floating in the air. He's got some grass to stand on. Now the great thing about our blender pens is if you look closely here, you can see pencil marks and things that I used, and I purposely left a little bit of area here uncolored so you can see what the blender pen does if you're not familiar. The blender pens have something inside them. I really don't even know what it is. It's not water, but it's acid free, and it's just a great blending tool to soften the look. So I'm simply going to run this over all the areas I colored, and it softens the line and gives it more of that watercolor look. Each blender pen has two fine tips, one on either end, and can you see already how that's softening up here where I've used it as opposed to here in the back? And so you do not need one of these for every color. There's a great little trick that when you're finished with one color, all you have to do is run it on a piece of scrap paper until it runs clear, and then you can switch to your next color. Before I do that, I want you to see here, see how I didn't color in the end of the tail? I can stretch my color a little bit using the blender pen. So I didn't have to get every ounce of that covered, but I could still pull the color out, if that makes sense. And you will see that again here in just a second. Here's a piece of white scrap paper. And see, there's just a little bit of color there. I just run it till it runs clear. And then I can switch to my old olive, and here you'll be able to see as well, I can really extend the color using that blender pen. And I think that's good. So now that that is done, just cap my blender pen, set that to the side. I'm going to layer these two pieces together. Again, using my Stampin' Seal Plus. Very narrow border around there. I am going to lay this flat on the card. I could pop it up with dimensionals if I wanted, but I opted for something different this evening. So this is going to get put right between the panels, perfectly filling that space. Now to finish the front of the card, I die cut a couple of shapes from the Tree Rings die set, which coordinates with our Ringed with Nature stamp set. And I'll show that to you real quick. I am using the Just For You for my words tonight, but this is a great stamp set because it covers lots of occasions. So I cut a tree ring that I'm going to stamp my sentiment on, and then I cut a large twig and a skinny twig from Early Espresso, if you like my technical terms there. And then from Evening Evergreen, I cut another small twig. There are two of each that go in opposite directions. You can see them here. So you have lots of versatility with this set. Now I'm going to use Early Espresso ink and just stamp my Just For You. There we go, right there. I thought using the tree ring would be a little bit different than, say, a circle. It kind of goes with the woodland theme. So I'm going to take dimensionals and pop my tree ring here on the dimensionals. These are our mini dimensionals. The large ones would have been fine too. And then once the backing is peeled off of those, I'm going to put it down here to cover one of these corners. I could put it really anywhere on the card that I wanted. And then I'm going to use glue dots. Now these happen to come from my paper pumpkin kit. I always keep my leftovers. If you're not familiar with Paper Pumpkin, it is our monthly subscription kit, and we have a box that is delivered to your door about the middle of the month. You can go to my website and check that out as well, and it always comes with all the materials you need to make a project. It's typically cards, but from time to time we have other 3D projects as well, and you will know what will be in the card kit or in the kit ahead of time, but you might not know what the complete design is. But we always have glue dots like this in it, and there's always more than you need, and I keep these because they are really handy for putting on these little embellishments, these little die cut pieces. But you can use regular glue dots, or you could use glue as well. Let's see, I think I'm gonna put my Evening Evergreen piece on first here. And I was using my Take Your Pick tool that we have to attach those glue dots because they tend to stick to my fingernails. And I don't need things stuck to my fingernails. I want it to be stuck to my card front. All right, so here's the last one. This piece I'm going to put down this direction. And there is my front of the card all ready to go. And just to finish the inside, I'm going to keep it very simple. I have a panel of basic white that is 5 1/4 by 4. And I opted, rather than doing any stamping, to take a strip of Designer Series paper. It matches my paper on the front. And this is 1/2 inch by 5 1/4. Now I'm just gonna put a little bit of glue here. I'm using my silicone craft mat in case I get a little crazy with the glue. That way my work surface isn't ruined. And trust me, I usually get glue everywhere. This is just gonna go across the top as a nice accent. And then this panel gets put inside the card. And then the last thing I have to do is stamp my envelope. I have a rule, no naked envelopes. And sometimes I stamp them, sometimes I put flaps of designer series paper on them. This time I'm opting for stamping, and I'm just gonna bring out that fox image one more time and stamp that on the front of my envelope. And then, once my ink pad is closed up, my card and my envelope are ready to go. So I hope you enjoyed making that technique. I have several samples to show you. One thing I like about this card is it's very easy to pick some designer series paper and then mass produce this card, because you're simply cutting 1-inch strips in one direction or another, and you can put together a card very quickly. So I just wrapped up a Christmas in July series on my Facebook page and my YouTube channel, so I stayed with Christmas for a few cards. Here I wanted to show you, you do not have to mix and match designer series paper and cardstock. You can simply use the dimensions and just cut all in the same designer series paper if you like. It's just a nice framed look. And you can decorate the card however you like. Here I fussy cut and attach the poinsettia along with my Christmas sentiment. You can also turn this card sideways and use it in the vertical orientation instead of the horizontal orientation. And you can also play with your paper placement. Here I have the long strip near the top right or top left, and here I did it on the bottom left. So the card looks fine either way, it's totally up to you. Here my little girl gnome is fussy cut from the gnome designer series paper, and on this card I opted to use all the die cut pieces that coordinate. So very quick and simple to do in either style. And of course with a stamped envelope to match. One more Christmas card. I have this card featuring the Boughs of Holly designer series paper. I used 2 different designer series paper prints, and rather than pop a sentiment or something else on the card, I decided to use our gold leaves. I attached these with glue dots, and then I added some of our festive pearls to make the little holly look. And then I kept my inside simple with a strip of designer series paper along with my message. And for this card, I opted for coordinating designer series paper on my envelope flap as opposed to a stamp. Now, stepping out of Christmas for a moment, I have a couple other cards to show you here. These are more celebration items if you're watching in August 2022. Very sweet sympathy card with 2 different coordinating prints of designer series paper. Rather than a white panel, I opted for a colored panel of cardstock that I stamped a little more tone on tone. And then I repeated my stamp on the inside as well. And here I used one of the same designer series paper, but I changed the colors to coordinate with another coordinating sheet of the designer series paper. And here I popped up my rectangles with dimensionals and left off any other kind of accent. So you have lots of options with the cards. I also mentioned that it doesn't matter which style of card base you use, the long skinny or the style, the half sheet as I used. And I liked this card in the designer series paper so much, I actually made it in 2 different colors. And I just wanted to show you the options that you have with just cutting the designer series paper in the different lengths, mixing and matching, and you can definitely position your sentiment or your image, whatever you want to decorate the card with, wherever you like on the front. Lots and lots of options. And then of course, a sweet little stamp on the inside and on my envelopes as well. And I do have one more card to show you. You do not have to layer that inside rectangle if you like. You can keep it simple with 1 piece of cardstock or 1 piece of designer series paper. Here I decided to let all this beautiful designer series paper do the talking. I really like this pumpkin piece as the focal point, and I just added 2 banners that I cut the end off to just keep the look the way I wanted it, and added some of our brushed metallic embellishments and added paper to my envelope flap, and I have a beautiful, simple fall card ready to go. So you can see these cards will go together very quickly, and it's a great use of scrap paper, or just to use up some of that designer series paper that you have laying around. I know I have piles of it. So I hope you enjoyed learning how to make this quick and simple card technique. If you haven't already, I would love for you to subscribe to this YouTube channel. You can click the notification bell and you'll be notified each time I post a video. You can also hop on over to Facebook if you like, to The Faithful Stamper. I share projects there, pictures of these projects, and I also will share more about incentives and specials that Stampin' Up! Might be offering from time to time. Thank you so much for watching. Take care and happy crafting.